All right, so one of the things that we've been listening to a lot this season is that we're concerned about the offensive line, the fact that we're starting a couple of freshmen or have been starting a couple of freshmen during practice at left guard and left tackle. After listening to the press conference today, I think everybody that listened to that press conference and really heard what the coaches say is that those young men that are being tried on that side of the line, they're being tried there because the coaches want to see what happens when they're put up against the best that Notre Dame has to offer. Now, one of the things that we need to remember is that Notre Dame is returning one of the best defensive lines and one of the best defensive secondaries in the country this year. So if you're going to test a couple of guys to see if they're ready to start, you're going to test them against the best players you've got. You're going to test them against Mills. You're going to test them against Howard Cross, right? You're going to make sure that these two guys are ready to play, whether that's at right tackle or right guard or left tackle or left guard. And you might only be assessing them at one position, but you've got to see best on best. Now, another thing that I took away from that potentially is that Jagisaw got hurt the other day. So your starting left tackle, the person that we knew was essentially a guaranteed starter unless he got hurt based on his experience, based on his just getting out there, getting it done, right? Barring him in some way, shape, or form quitting, which would have been completely out of his character as an athlete, he was the starter. Now, he wasn't named the starter. Everybody gets the chance to compete, but we knew what we were getting with Jagisaw. Jagisaw gets hurt. He tears a pectoral muscle, and he's out for the rest of the season. So now what do we do? Well, we've got Tosh Baker lined up. Okay. We know what Tosh Baker can do. He played 13 games last year. What we need to understand is what we have behind Tosh Baker. So is there still competition going on for those left tackle and left guard positions? Absolutely. Does Tosh being in practice with the twos mean that he's not that starter? I don't think so at all. And honestly, if anything else, it protects Tosh from getting hurt, right? Because he's playing against, while still good athletes, the next sort of level down, if you can really call it that. He's playing against a couple of guys who aren't going to be number 1 and number 2 and number 3 round draft picks next year. They might be there in a few years, right? Our defensive line's that good, and we've got plenty of depth there. But that's not who he's practicing against right now. So that's kind of what we needed to be aware of. I think with the offensive line, all of this is going to settle out. They're going to name they're going to name our starters here going in the Texas A&M game. But you really had to assess the new talent that we've got there, and I think we'll see some players rotate in through the course of the season. That was one of the things that they really talked about a lot over the course of 50 minutes during the press conference, was that we've got a lot of depth. There's a lot of depth in a lot of places. We're looking at starting 8 different wide receivers and rotating 8 different wide receivers in. So, six potential, maybe 9, right? At the 3 different wide receiver positions. We know that we've got depth at tight end, right? We've got Cooper Flanagan behind Mitch Evans. So we've got some depth there. And we need to make sure that we have some depth in the offensive line. We've got plenty of depth in the secondary. Guys back there are rotating around. Xavier Watts and Ben Morrison have been named, first and second team All-Americans. They're early nominations for multiple awards, and they're just that good. They're the number 1 or number 2. They're a number 1, 2, or 3 consensus top player in the country in the secondary coming into the season. There's some debate as to whether they're 1, 2, or 3 among the different analysts out there, but they're 1, 2, and 3. So that's not an issue. And then we've got 5 potential starters at linebacker. So all in all, in a great position. You know, we're gonna see Drake Bowen play. We're gonna see Jack Kaiser play. I think the thing that I'm the most excited about is seeing some play from Kingston Valamu Asa. That's, you know, he's an amazing young athlete, amazing kid. Cannot wait to see him play some football and play some snaps, and he's going to be a part of that rotation coming in. So very excited to see that. So all in all, defense is in a good situation. Offensive line, it is our biggest question mark for sure, but you know we're building depth there, and that's part of what this ones-on-ones and potentially twos-on-ones really is what I think we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks. Again, not to say that they're not competing for the number 1 spot. They're certainly competing for the number 1 spot. They have the right to go out and earn that spot, and that's what the coaching staff is giving them the ability to do. They earned the ability to go and play against the ones and show what they could do against the ones. You know, and they talk about ones and twos in this program a lot. First string, second string, whatever that means, right? Ones and twos, you know, starter versus rotates in and plays 33% of the downs. Again, right? Whatever that means, they're developing these packages and these programs to make all that happen. So, should we be concerned about going and playing against Texas A&M in the heat, week 1, in 2 weeks? Well, yeah. That's a good football team. There's a lot of noise down there, right? Kyle Field is a loud stadium. They don't say it's the home of the 12th man for nothing. But can we handle it? We can handle it. I think this team, more than any team, any Notre Dame team I've seen in recent history, this team is ready to handle this environment. So be ready for it. And they're gonna be ready for it. Everything I've heard from all 3 of the head, you know, our head coaches, right? From our head coach Marcus Freeman, from Al Golden, and from Coach Denbrock, we're gonna be ready for it. And it's just a matter of does Riley Leonard have enough trust with his wide receivers? That's something that they're still trying to build. That's something that they're working on in practices. And I think it's something that we're certainly going to have. The fact that we're talking about having, you know, of 8 or 9 wide receivers ready to start, I can't think of the last time that Notre Dame had that kind of depth or the mentality that we had that many wide receivers that were ready to play. Tight end, sure. Yeah, you know, for years. Offensive line, actually, again, for years, right? Everybody's kind of been just trying to be that 1% better than the person behind them. And some of them, you know, and a lot of them have been 3, 5, 10% better. But everybody's just, you know, just working to make sure that they're that 1% better than the guy behind them. Because they know that that's what they're competing against. If they're not getting better every day, somebody's going to pass them. And that's what we're seeing on this football team right now. I look back at the spring game and I look at what we had in the spring game, and I got to say I was, you know, fairly impressed with Steve Angeli. We have depth at quarterback at Notre Dame right now. Now, Riley Leonard's going to start, but Steve Angeli right behind him, if something were to happen to Leonard, we've seen how he plays. He proved himself last year in the bowl game, and he's going to prove himself again, I think, going through this season. Whether he actually plays or not, you know, he's proven that he can be the number 1 guy if he's called upon to be. And then CJ Carr, right behind him, you know, and and Kenny Minchie's no slouch. So we've got plenty of depth going on at the quarterback position, which is something that, again, we haven't had in a long time. You know, I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. I think this is the most prepared football team that we will have seen maybe since 2012. It's definitely the most well-built all-around team. And if there is a question mark, it's not in who's going to start at the offensive line. That's certainly a question mark. But I'm talking about a big question mark. Because we want to know, right? We want to know who's going to start. And we can speculate all day. I think Tosh Baker's going to start at left tackle. One of the freshmen might fill in at left guard or right guard. They've earned the ability to do that, and they've earned the ability to play and to start and to rotate in. We already know Mitch Evans is going to be ready. Cooper Flanagan's going to be ready. Those two guys have us rounded out at tight end and will continue. There's plenty of additional depth there as well. And we have so many threats at wide receiver right now. It's just a matter of who's our standout deep threat. Who's the guy that's 1% better? And can he get better than 1% better? So I love the fact that all these guys are competing out there right now. They're going to go into A&M. They're really actually going to compete. The coaching staff is absolutely going to be able to get this done for us. We're going to have the right plays called at the right times. We're not going to have an Ohio State repeat. We're not going to have a Marshall repeat. Texans A&M's not Marshall, but we've got some Miami Ohio's to play later this year, and some Northern Illinois universities. This is a well prepared football team, and they will continue to be better prepared in the weeks to come. All right, I'm gonna leave it with that. As always, God bless. Keep looking up. Go Irish.